to all of you who have joined us today on Zoom as well as YouTube Live. I, Priyanka Bhutani, on behalf of NSS GGS IPU, extend a very warm welcome to all of you in the concluding session of the Mind Over Matter Season 2, in collaboration with the esteemed NSS unit of IIT Delhi and Raj Yoga Education and Research Foundation, a sister concern of Brahmakumaris. We start this session with a deep sense of gratitude to the Almighty that this initiative, which started in the month of April, has been helping one and all in coping with the current challenging times. We are very happy to share that this reached not only to hundreds of students and staff of GGS IPU and the collaborating organization IIT Delhi, but also soon crossed state and national boundaries of India to be watched and appreciated in 24 countries of the world, with over 17,000 views till date and still counting. In case any of you has missed out on any of the 12 of the 2 seasons, they are still very much available on this YouTube channel. Like any other, especially of this scale, there were indeed many challenges of various kinds, like the technical issues, sending thousands of emails, but we have been blessed to have a wonderful team MOM who then took it up tirelessly for many months, and also blessed to have hundreds of positive and thankful messages from many participants encouraging us. Today's talk on building emotional resilience by Dr. Avdesh Sharma, who is an award-winning consultant, well-being psychiatrist, and well-known TV and media expert on mental health, is going to play a very pivotal role in setting the way forward for all of us. We are thankful to have the blessings of Honorable Padma Shri, Professor Dr. Mahesh Verma, Vice Chancellor GGS IPU, who has been encouraging us in this series, but unable to join us today due to some previous commitments. We are also blessed to be joined by Shri Ravi Dadich, Senior Dynamics and Registrar GGS IPU, who has been very supportive right from the beginning of this series. Thank you very much, sir. It is now my pleasure to welcome Sister B.K. Kamla, who has played a pivotal role in Mind Over Matter series for coordinating with all the wonderful speakers across the world and getting them on board. She is a Raj Yoga teacher with Brahmakumaris, has overall corporate experience of 17 years with renowned MNCs before dedicating her life for humanity in the Brahmakumaris. A regular faculty member of Om Shanti Retreat Center, Northern Campus of Brahmakumaris at Manesar, and as a part of the Security Services Wing, she has delivered numerous sessions at the headquarters, Northern Command of the Indian Army, and also served across the nation at various defense establishments. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Am I audible? I hope I'm audible.
Sister.
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you. Om Shanti. Hello and good evening to you all. Om Shanti. These are very powerful 2 words, but this has a very deep meaning. This is how we treat within the Brahmakumaris and the Raj Yoga Education Research Foundation. Within this institution, we learned Om means I, the soul, and I'm peaceful. This is the original core value of any soul. And if I am peaceful, so is the other soul in the entire world, whoever it is. So with this pure consciousness, when we interact with anybody in this world today, we will be able to work and allow our inner pure energies of peace, happiness, and purity to play its role in all our interactions. So that is what is the meaning of Om Shanti. Secondly, today being the last session in the series of Mind Over Matter, I would like to thank personally Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Mahesh Verma ji, Shri Ravi Dadich ji, the Registrar, Professor Mukhopadhyay from IIT Delhi, Professor B.V.R. Reddy, the NSS coordinator from IP University, and all the students and youth, whoever has been playing a very vital role in this beautiful initiative, where we all have come together to serve the human minds. And I learned very recently that this Mind Over Matter series has been a great success, as many countries, souls across many countries are watching this series and taking benefit out of it. I learned that about, on an average, 2 to 3,000 viewers have been there for each of the sessions and across many countries. So I was personally very happy that when we all had come together for this beautiful initiative, it is giving us good results. This being the last session of this series, I would like to also place on record that we in the Raj Yoga Education and Research Foundation, we are always ready for any such kind of services, even in the future. Rather, I'd like to also make a mention that before even starting this Mind Over Matter series, we've been in touch with Professor B.V.R. Reddy. He has been very kind to be able to talk to us and also take forward a very unique concept, which is conceived by the Raj Yoga Education and Research Foundation, which we call it as the Thought Lab concept. Thought Lab concept, the proposal for which has been already floated, and it is already something that being proposed with the IP University. And I think Professor Reddy will want to elaborate a little bit on the proposal and its development when he shares his views. Thought Lab is a very unique concept where there is a small space created within the university or a college campus, which allows individuals, especially the youth, to experiment with their laboratory of their mind. In the laboratory of their mind, they're able to experiment with their thoughts, with their feelings, emotions, and they're able to fight and win over the dragons of their negativities and any kind of hindrances that is created by today's scenario, or the external or the internal negative forces. So Thought Lab is a very beautiful concept. We've already been running it across the country with some colleges and universities, and it's doing very well. So I'd like to also say that in any of the university or college or any educational institution, if they want to have this Thought Lab concept in their premises for the benefit of the youth, to empower their minds so that they're able to do very well in whatever they're doing, but also are able to manage their minds in a way that they excel and succeed in their life. So this Thought Lab concept, I'm sure Professor Reddy will be sharing some developments on the proposal. Also, my heartfelt thanks to everyone who has been part of this beautiful initiative for bringing it to this level. And I'm sure we will have some more interactions in future. And any of you, if you wish to have any such services for your institution, we will be pleased to offer that. Thank you so much. And with pure good wishes, Om Shanti.
Thank you, sister. In the Mind Over Matter Season 2, we have been extremely proud to be collaborating with the esteemed NSS unit of IIT Delhi to reach out to the large student base at their institute as well. Dr. Samrat Mukhopadhyay, who is the Associate Professor of Textile and the coordinator for NSS IIT Delhi for many years, has played a pivotal role in this collaboration. We are very thankful to you, sir. Although Professor Samrat hasn't been able to join us today due to prior commitments, we are joined today on his behalf by the General Secretary of the very hardworking team of NSS IIT Delhi, Mr. Saksham. Thank you so much, Saksham, for joining us. and over to you.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. On behalf of the whole team of IIT Delhi, on behalf of Professor Samrat and Shivam Rathi, my co-general secretary, we have had a very successful collaboration with the Mind Over Matter series, and the response of this series has been phenomenal in our aspect. Many people have praised this series in IIT, and especially over the last webinar, it generated a lot of views within IIT as well. And we are very thankful to RERF and Indraprasth University too, because they have very expertly managed all these events and all these webinars. And we would really wish to collaborate with Thought Labs as well, as we had discussed previously. And Professor Samrat, though he is not well currently, so he was not able to join, but he sends his well wishes to the entire team and to the entire MOM series should it continue further in the future. And we have also taken many ideas from the MOM series, and we, as of now, wish to implement them on more one-to-one interaction basis with the students in the IIT Delhi, because we have had large-scale interactions through these sessions, and we would like to know what kind of effect that has had on them in an individual capacity. So that is how we would like to go further with it. But yeah, thank you very much for allowing us this collaboration.
Thank you so much, Saksham. He has
Yes,
been very instrumental in this collaboration as a very active General Secretary of the NSS IIT Delhi. Thanks a
yes,
lot.
ma'am.
It is my pleasure now to introduce Professor BVR Reddy, Program Coordinator, GGS IPU NSS Cell for the university, as well as the affiliated institutions. He is the chairperson of Centralized Career Guidance and Placement Cell. He possesses an excellent track record, both as a teacher and as a researcher, besides all the administrative acumen in the technology areas of ICT for the last 30 years. He is currently actively participating in the educational reforms and value-based education in tune with the national skill qualification framework. He strongly believes in holistic development and growth of the next generation children and dreams of a society where each and every species living on earth lives harmoniously. He has been very instrumental in encouraging the whole endeavor. Thank you so much, sir. A very warm welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much for again giving me this opportunity. Let me at the outset welcome all the participants in the webinar today, and particularly my Honorable Vice Chancellor and Registrar. So both of them are, Registrar sir is available, but as I already said, Vice Chancellor is busy with this work. Now, let me also welcome all the dignitaries who are present to today's proceedings. I constantly keep reminding my audience about the holistic health of a child, which involves the four aspects: the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And one of the topics we're going to touch today on emotional resilience. And coherence of all these four aspects is a very necessary ingredient for overall personality development and growth of the child. So it is my belief that our education system prevailing in this country so far has not touched upon all the four aspects. Still, we are far away into this. Now, in the context of the pandemic, this has become much more important to address these issues and sensitize our children, the young generation, to equip themselves to face the challenges that are being posed and are going to be faced even post-pandemic phase. So emotional resilience, as per dictionary, it is one's ability to adapt to stressful situations or crisis. And some people are more resilient and some are weak in this, and then we need to strengthen them. So whatever is the internal or external stresses, it depends upon how well emotional resilience is built into our own way life. So it also says that emotional resilience is an art of living through which we empower ourselves to perceive adversaries as temporary and keep evolving through the pain. So in that, we need to equip our children. So, and we are also aware that today life can be at most very difficult or very unpredictable. So people experience that one moment everything is going to be right, and at the same moment you find that the world has turned all around for you. So I think the pandemic has taught us this fact, but very unusual way. So this important lesson is either accept your defeat or rise above this and then start fighting against the adversity or the pain that we are encountering today. In the Indian context, many sages and thinkers taught us over centuries how to lead a simple and lives with high thinking, following meticulously the dharma that is prescribed to be followed, which again encompasses all these four phases of it. Uh, to my mind, Thought Lab is nothing but the amalgamation of all these four facets where we are looking into the overall personality of the child. Any one trait missing is not going to help. So the four aspects are the physical resilience, the mental resilience, the emotional resilience, as well as the spiritual resilience. Thought Lab definitely talks about all these facets, which are somehow missing in our education system. Some parts are not there. So maybe we are trying to do it as a co-curricular activity, trying to push it into our systems so that we achieve the objective of energizing the young generation to face challenges of life, and they become better citizens for this country. So with that time, we have been trying to work on the Thought Lab concept. Now, when we look at life, there are four aims of life. And what are the aims of life? I have been telling that we call it in the spiritual context, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. These are the four stages or four aims of life which we need to conquer step by step, where dharma talks about the righteous and moral values which should be followed by every citizen, every child. And then artha refers to the prosperity or the economic activity or the growth in one's life as we perceive in the material world also should be conquered, meaning thereby one should always pursue this goal also. And then we have a lot of desires which are called as kama. And then we should not surrender to these aspirations. We have to work for our aspirations, but it should be more of a pleasure, should contain love, and it should be a psychological positivity with which we have to approach our requirements or the pleasures or whatever we talk about. The last stage is once we conquer these things, the real pleasure or happiness is what we call in the parlance of moksha, that is liberation and the spiritual values that we're going to have. Now, these are the aims of life, and in a human life cycle, there are four stages. We all know about it. The formative stage, the stage one, we call it. It is the playful, the imitation world, and education. So this is up to 15 years, and which requires a lot of nurturing and a lot of inputs, values to be imbibed into the child. Now, similarly, stage two talks about the adolescence phase, where we talk about, and it is the most important and the most toughest part of one's life. The reason for this is that there are so many dramatic changes, physical, psychological, behavioral changes in this age, and they are into the real world to understand what is what. So at this stage, I think emotional or non-cognitive, or we call it as a social resilience, is very, very important. And one should be mentally prepared, learn things in the right perspective. And then, as I said, all the four aspects of human nature should be nurtured. So stage T is the phase where we say the adulthood or grihastha ashrama, where we dedicate, contemplate, we work for quite for our families and do all that. And the last stage is the retirement stage, or where you talk about the wisdom and renunciation. So in these four phases, learning is a component. We have to learn these things. Step by step, our maturity improves, our learning improves, our experiences teach us many things. And then as we progress, the end goal is to be happy. The soul needs to be happy. So the highest aim of any human being is that you have to serve yourselves, and then in the highest order, you have to be humane. You should be able to serve the society in a big way. Listen to your heart, where God speaks. Through yoga and a relationship with God, we strengthen ourselves each day. By being in more touch with myself, I get more clarity of the overall purpose. So under this context, I think today's lecture will be very interesting, where emotional resilience is a very, very important component. Even the West has understood this concept, and they are trying to imbibe into this, that this is also equally important for a person in any industry to grow, apart from the intellectual resilience. So I'm all eyes and ears to listen to the guest of the day. And I welcome once again the speaker of the day, Dr. Avdesh Sharma ji, and all my coordinators who have tirelessly worked for fructifying the Mind Over Matter series too. Uh, and I take this opportunity all over again, welcome my registrar sir, who has been very kindly, generously is available today and is listening. So I hand over the mic to you, Priyanka. Take it over. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words and encouraging us always. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker of the day, Dr. Avdesh Sharma, who is an award-winning consultant well-being psychiatrist practicing in Delhi for more than 30 years. He is a very well-known TV and media expert on mental health. He is a D.P.M, MD Psychiatry, and gold medalist from the prestigious institution NIMHANS. He is the former international lead on public education for the World Psychiatric Association, international distinguished fellow of the American Psychiatric Association, past president of the Indian Association of Private Psychiatry, just to name a few of his various achievements. He has been extensively awarded for his work with awards like Gem of India, Rashtriya Gaurav Awards, and the Health Oscar of India. He has been associated with the Brahmakumaris for the past 28 years. Sir, we are indeed honored to have you taking this session on emotional resilience for all of us. Thank you so much, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Priyanka ji. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure because it takes me back about 50 years of my life's journey. Many of the faces like Saksham and Abir that I see, I was there about 50 years back. And I wish that we had a seminar like that at that point of time. It didn't exist. Thank you also for GSSIP and NSS IIT Delhi, and especially Sister Kamla and the Brahmakumaris, who have all put this together in a wonderful way. Dr. Reddy, thank you for your very setting the stage kind of a presentation. You were so erudite. Before I start, I would like each one of us to just step back for 30 seconds and just sit in silence and reflect on what is going on in our mind at this point of time. Thank you very much. When we ask people to sit in silence, for a large number of people, it's the most troubling part because, you become aware of your thoughts. And it's not always that you're comfortable with your thoughts. For some of the people who are very used to meditating, it can be a wonderful way of reconnecting with yourself amidst everything else that's happening around. So from different perspective, the same situation and the same activity can have a different connotation. Today, when we are going to be talking about emotional resilience, and especially in the context of what cumulatively has been going on in the society, many people talk about it as something that has happened after almost 70, 80 years after the Second World War, or some people talk about after the Spanish flu of 2000, about 100 years back, and 1911 onwards to 1919. But I think it's much more unique than any one of them. Because at that point of time, one critical thing was not there, and that is media. That is the connectivity which today gives us opportunity, and yet at the same time can be an obstacle to the growth that we have as an individual. At this point of time, simultaneously, the world is going through certain events, which actually to the world at large gives an opportunity to change the course of humanity. Or else we can get stuck with it and feel that this is the most terrible thing that has happened, and start feeling as if this is the end of humanity as we know it. I definitely believe that this is the end of humanity as we know it. But it also means that we have the possibility of recreating history at this point of time. And in that, I think having the emotional resilience would be the most critical factor. Simply because whatever we experience in the world around us is based on our mind. Everyone interprets it differently. So depending on where you are in terms of your emotionality, in terms of your mental faculties, you would be deciding whether that particular situation for you is troublesome, is challenging, is an obstacle, or an opportunity for growth. So today, in the next about 45 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about why it's necessary. I'm going to talk about how it can be done. And I'm going to talk about how in very, very simple day-to-day tools that we have at hand, we can achieve it. What's also important to understand is that like inoculation, at this point of time, everybody is talking about vaccines. Everybody is talking about immunity at the physical level so that we are able to get over whatever comes in terms of infection. And once we have the immunity, we would be able to go through the crisis. Actually, emotional resilience goes beyond that. When you are able to learn it, then you are able to have it forever. It's a skill. It's like learning computers. Once you have learned it, then you are able to carry on with many programs. It's not only for one program. So it would be available to us at that point of time for everything that we are going to face in life. I also understand that probably, as was being said by Dr. Reddy, that for students, it's a very, very challenging thing. I do understand that it is because, one, you are on a threshold where you are going to start life, and you or your parents and your teacher and the whole society has a different dream. It's in a certain way that things were planned out, and suddenly now there is a spanner in the wheels. That also means that whatever we had planned will not happen the way we had planned. It also means that it gives us the ability to pause and to relook at what you want to do in life. Something many people wanted to always said, I don't want to follow what everybody else tells me. I don't want to follow what the society tells me. All right. So here is something where you get a pause. But in that period, how can you muster your mind so that you can reflect and you can come out much more resilient is what we are going to be talking about today. So, like was said that, some people are more resilient than others. Yes, that's true. Some people are innately maybe more resilient than others. And I think the reason for that is that they see many resilient people around them in their childhood. They see role models, whether it is their parents or it's their teachers, who don't crumble under small little problems. And they just imbibe that feeling. In case you haven't learned it, it's never too late. Any age in life. Emotional resilience is something that can be learned. It's something that can be shared, but shared only by example. You can't teach it like, you give a book to somebody and say, read it through, but how to apply it to yourself is what is critical. So we can create critically accomplished, skilled people who can learn emotional resilience if they don't have it, who can increase their emotional resilience. And it is not only individuals, it can happen to families, because it is something like an infectious disease. If you have somebody around you who has it, then you also are able to imbibe it and move forward. We can have emotionally resilient workplace and societies, and sometimes nations. There are countries where there are wars going on for decades. There are countries where every year they are ravaged by natural forces. Japan, for example, gets earthquakes more than any other country in the world. They haven't crumbled. They have become the third largest economy in the world, second in Asia. Uh, so similarly, there are societies which are resilient. And I think India is poised to become one. If we start investing in this in a big way, especially at the level of schools and colleges and universities. And this wonderful idea of the Thought Lab, I've been aware of it for quite some time. And we have been, party to it in some ways. Myself and my wife, who's a clinical psychologist in a university called NCU, and of course from Mount Abu, where individuals, especially in the universities, are given a peek into their own mind and what they can do to improve the mental and emotional well-being of their own. Now, there is always this, physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual distinctions that you would hear. And I want to flag it that this is actually a continuum. No human is in isolation. Inside us, the whole package is called a human being. It comes from two words, humus and being. So humus is actually the earth, and the body is the earth. So body is made up of 5 elements, as was said in the ancient Indian text. And when you introduce the concept of the soul or atma or spirit or consciousness, whatever name you want to, then that starts using the 5 elements in a very, very purposeful way. And the way it does is, because that's an energy, so energy, when it gets interactive with the matter, and this entire series is very aptly called mind over matter, which means that, when the human consciousness, in a very, very purposeful manner, is able to guide the matter, that is the body, through the processes of the mind, then you have the whole package of human being. At this point of time, I would say that we are mostly stuck at the level of the human. Being is something that one doesn't usually talk about. It's only recently, and I can share another thing with you from the perspective of mental health across the world, that there is a big movement happening at this point of time, which is called as positive psychology, which talks about the role of hope, which talks about the role of prayers, which talks about the role of human connection. It talks also about the role of human interactions, and it talks about the role of human connectedness, and how all these factors can help us to have better mental and emotional health. Now, there are studies after studies now which are coming out, and those of us who feel that we need to be scientific minded, I can tell you very, very clearly that at this point of time, knowing about and focusing on spiritual aspects of the being is as important as focusing on the mental well-being. Until a few years back, unfortunately, even the mental and emotional well-being was not spoken of. It was mostly the body. Let me tell you here as to how the human body and human mind interact with each other. It might be of news to you. It is also interesting, and those of you who would like to take it up maybe at some point of time in the future, you could do so. If you were to look at it only as a computer model, you know, human body has about 100 trillion cells. And each cell is a complete entity by itself. And each cell at all point of time continues to interact with the other cell in a very conscious manner. So you have the intelligence even at the cellular level. But then the master operator is brain, and through its functions, that's the mind, it starts interacting with each and every cell. And human brain has about 100 billion cells. And each cell of the brain has 10 to 15,000 connections with each other. I don't know if anybody here has a Facebook account of more than 15,000 people. And if somebody would have, it would be thought of as being great. But consider that each and every human brain cell has that many connections. So that is the connectedness that we have inside the human body. And there are about 6 million reactions that are taking place in the body at all points of time. Now, if you have only 4 cars in a city like Delhi, and you are at a traffic junction, you would create a traffic jam because everybody wants to go there first. But inside the body and the mind, all these cells are functioning perfectly in harmony with each other through the various things that happen there, through the hormones, through the electrolyte impulses, through the neurochemicals, through the neurotransmitters. And because of that, we are able to eat, digest, breathe, think, plan for the future, heal ourselves all simultaneously. So it's a beautiful mechanism that has been evolved. And in this, if you are in the best frame of mind, if you are feeling good emotionally, and if you are feeling well, then these functions happen perfectly. If you are under stress, then because of that stress, all these functions start becoming disarrayed. And what we see is that as soon as you are stressed out, and in case you're stressed out at all points of time, you won't even know that you're stressed. You know, it's only you're relaxed for some time. And that's why in the beginning I said, let's pause for just 30 seconds so that we have that glimpse of connecting within. And then when you start having a little bit of stress, you are able to see that your entire functioning, whether of your thoughts or your emotions or the physiological functions, that starts going into a disarray. Now, this entire process of being distressed is actually a continuum. At this point of time, just as a reference for all of you, some of you probably will go into the field of medicine or biomedical sciences. I just want to flag one thing, which is very, very important, is that about 1/4 of the population at any point of time today is having diagnosable psychiatric illnesses. And that's not a small number. And about 75% of those illnesses start before the age of 24. So the age group that most of the people who come into the universities. They are, and then they manifest in their own way. And it doesn't happen in one day. So you have a period of stress. If it continues for some time and it causes you disturbance, that becomes distress. If the distress goes on for some time, then there is a dis-ease. You are not at ease. And when you are not at ease, you become diseased. And if it continues for a longer period of time in more than one area of your life, then you have a disorder. So the fact that I'm trying to emphasize is that because it has become a disorder in about 1/4 of the population, if we can stop it from reaching there, then you have won the battle. And for that, the important aspect is reflection, changing, and being able to imbibe some of the principles that we will be talking about very, very shortly. Now, question is, when should I start it? I think the answer is the day you're born. Because the first stress is that you are feeling very hungry when you're born as a child. And if you don't get the food, what do? You start crying. But then you learn over a period of time that food will come, the mother is going to provide it. And then over a period of time, you start settling down. That's the first lesson in emotional resilience, the ability to hold on, that we see that happens. And then the process of inculcation within the house and then within the school, where you start having some or the other external factors or your own internal desires, and you learn how to overcome them or to delay them or to look for the higher purpose. And that's how we evolve as a human being. Now, this entire process in our mind actually go as a team. It's a teamwork. And I would call this as I teams, my teams. I is the intention. You want to do something. When you want to do something, that intention arises. Actually, intention is before thinking. Once you have the intention, Hindi mein isko vritti kaha jata hai. So once you have that intention, you have a thought about doing it. And then you decide, I want to do it. And then you either have a positive or a negative emotion with it. So intention, thought, emotion. And if you feel, yes, that's the right thing to do, it will give me benefit, I will feel good about it. You go ahead and do it. And that's the action. And once you complete this process of the intention, thought, emotion, and action, you have a memory. Now, incidentally, the human memory is a holographic memory. Holographic, now, we have become so used to in the last 3 months in 2D, audio and visual. And I was talking to somebody and this person said, I feel very odd in 3D now. When I meet people and there is a third dimension, there is a depth to that person, I feel very odd because I have become so used to seeing people in a 2D motion. But actually human beings have 5Ds. So we have touch, taste, we have eyes, and we can hear, we can see, we can smell, we can taste, and we can touch. So these are the 5 physical senses. But there is a 6th sense, which is the emotional sense. So every time we have these 5 senses, you instantly either feel good about it or don't feel very good about it. And that also becomes embedded along with all these 5 senses as a holographic unit. So if you remember, for example, eating something, that eating will also have some memory of how you felt about it. And in case these memories are positive, they become engrammed, and then it becomes the S, which is sanskara or the personality. So if we keep on developing this in one direction, and it gives you positivity and gives you motivation. It makes you feel good and makes you feel happy. You keep moving in that direction. If it is something that you're not comfortable with, you keep withdrawing from it. And it's an everyday phenomenon, and it's a choice that we want to or don't want to move in that particular direction. So having said all this, where does it bring us in terms of emotional resilience? You know, emotional resilience is learning what you're not comfortable with. It's trying to imbibing what you don't want in your life and what you want to change. And then doing it in a direction that you feel comfortable about. And you would be able to then use it in your day-to-day function. And it is not only external. Actually, it is a lot internal. Because external factors, the same factor may be there for different people, but their processing of that factor and their ability to deal with that factor would be very, very different. And that's why it's important for us to first evaluate, or which the first is reflection. Once you're able to reflect as to what is the situation, and this is something that, you know, over a period of time, if you get into that mode, it starts becoming a second nature. It's not something that you have to spend too much time on. It's something that almost starts becoming instinctive over a period of time. So in case you are going to face any, I won't even call it disturbance, or I won't even call it difficult, I will say challenging situations, then there are certain ways, there are certain ingredients that can be applied on a day-to-day basis to be able to deal with it. The ingredients are a lot of C's. ABC, so it's a lot of C's. The first C is control. You need to be able to see how much you can control something. Is it an event that you can control? Can you control the number of corona cases outside you? You can't. Can you control whether it will affect you? Yes, you can. To what extent you can, it is based on where you go, whether you wear a mask or not, whether you do physical distancing or not, etc., etc. So the larger picture is something that you may not be able to control, but the small parts of it, you are able to control. So start with first trying to control that which is something easy for you. Breaking it down into small bits rather than trying, you know, a lot of students nowadays come and say, my entire career is screwed up. I don't know what to do about it. Well, you have no control on what may happen 5 years from now, or what course you may be taking up next year. But you have the control today of whether the exams are after 1 month or 2 months, whether during this period of time you would like to read or not read, or you would like to learn a new skill, or you would like to find out what are the alternatives. That's something within your control. So once we are able to control certain things, which we can more easily, the second C is the commitment. To be able to take up the task on a long-term basis. It can't be something that you start and then leave after 1 day and then start something else. So that's why first the reflection, and then the control, and then the commitment to be able to carry on. So on a day-to-day basis, you can start setting up time for it on, you know, whether you want to study for 2 hours or 3 hours or 5 hours, or you want to study for something, so you want to start applying for it, or you want to start looking out for it on the internet, whatever you want to do. That is the commitment. And once you're able to do it, then whatever is the external situation, which you're not very comfortable about, in small ways, you know, like inoculation. Inoculation is what? It's basically giving a small dosage of something which starts off a process within you, and it makes you much more resilient. The vaccination is on the same concept. So there is also a concept called stress inoculation. which means that if you have an external stress, you learn to take it up in small little dosages and handle it, and then overcome it, and then feel good about it, and then move forward. So once you're able to challenge that on a day-to-day basis, you feel much more in control every time that you're able to do it. And that empowers you for the next day. For this, we need to be connected. This is the fourth C. Connected means whether you're connected on the internet or you're connected with other people, where you get the information from. And communication, the fifth C, of communicating within yourself. Are you going the right way? Could you have done it differently? Is there something that you need to know more about it? Checking up with other people who are in similar situations, reading about them, how they handled that particular thing. And then 6C, become creative about it, which means that you could learn to do things differently. If you had studied for 5 hours a day in one go, maybe that's not the best way to go about it. If you have studied in a certain way, you could try new techniques. If you feel that you are not able to sit in one place for too long, you could break it down. You could learn to do same thing in a different way, and that's creativity. And once you start doing that, then comes the most important, I feel, is compassion for yourself first. Don't be too harsh on yourself. You know, a lot of us, and I see that happening in clinical practice, even with people who have achieved so much in life, they are not, they don't feel very good about themselves. Somewhere, at times, the achievements are only to make them feel good. And once they achieve, they still don't feel good. They want to achieve more. It's an endless cycle. So first is compassion for yourself, and then compassion for others who may be going through difficult times. You know, the minute you start becoming compassionate for others, you start feeling more empowered, because then you are giving to others. Then you are able to help others. And there is a lot of role of altruism that has been studied, where once you give, you receive, which means that you feel that you are in a place where you have so much that you can share with others. And once all this happens, then at that point of time, you can start having what is ultimately called the area which is probably the most difficult till now for people. But I think in coming years, which will have to become the flag bearer for all of us in the society, which is contentment. Which means whatever best you could do at this point of time, you have done. There's nothing more that you could have done. And another day, you would be able to do more. In future, you will be able to achieve more. So becoming content about it, and then starting the next day with the same cycle again. So once we can have these ingredients, then whatever the external situation, one is able to then overcome it, and having overcome it, feel good about it, and next day start 1 point higher, where you feel much more achievement, you feel much more in control, you feel much more empowered. Now, there are certain very simple processes that we can apply these ingredients. First is self-reflection. You know, as I said at the beginning, that it's very difficult for a large number of people to be comfortable with themselves, because that's not something that we have been taught from childhood. That's not something that we have practiced. You know, over a period of time, so much technology, so much of outward looking has led us to always want to do something. So we have started becoming human doings rather than human beings. So that being has become much less. And if you can, for short periods of time, start this process of self-reflection, where you look at your thoughts, you look at what you have achieved, you look at what you want to do, and then start going forward. Once that happens, then it's easier for you to start charting a path for yourself. After self-reflection comes self-acceptance. you could not be anything else than what you are today. You can wish it that I could be this and this. I wish I could be like my friend. I wish I could achieve this much. I wish I could have done this particular course, gotten this many marks, etc., etc. But the fact is, you are what you are today. So once you accept that, it doesn't mean that you can't achieve more. But only when you accept all the energies and time that is wasted in trying to be something else or somebody else, that would be gone. So you would suddenly feel so much of power within yourself because you have accepted who you are as a person. And then you can start starting to chart your course to whatever direction that you want. The third factor here is again with S, which is self-esteem, which means that you are a unique person. You have certain qualities which are not there with anybody else. And you're a package which is just growing. It's like a seed, when you see a seed, you can't be sure whether it's going to become a mango or an apple or a flower or whatever, but whatever is there in nature has a purpose. Similarly, each one of us has a purpose. So once you have that self-esteem that, yes, I have a purpose, and whatever have been my issues in life, if there were any, or I'm not able to accept myself, I don't have good self-esteem. Once you start realizing, I was talking to someone who gave me a beautiful mantra. And he said that whenever you feel totally lost in life and you feel that you have no use, start remembering that your breath is the food for the plants. We breathe out carbon dioxide, and the plants take that carbon dioxide and they produce oxygen and food. So in a way, we are creators of food for the plants, which gives out sustaining the whole world. So if you feel that you have nothing else in life, which you have no other purpose, and a lot of times people who are going through very troubled times, sometimes suicidal, this thing works with them. Because whatever we are, we are giving joy to somebody, maybe my parents, maybe my friends. I have something to contribute at all points of time. So if I have that self-esteem, then the ability to take it further becomes much easier. And for that, I think the most important part that's required at that point of time is to have a purposeful sense in life as far as my direction is concerned. And I don't know at this point of time whether the universities teach these courses. They didn't when I was a student. I know that they don't even at this point of time. But these are key elements that are required to be taught at all points of time to individuals, and so that whenever one is feeling down, and that would be there at all points of time in life, it's not something that's peculiar to a person or peculiar to a situation. It would be there, and if you are able to hold on to that, then we are able to give it a direction. And for that, I have some very simple techniques at this point of time to improve our self-resilience. Become aware of your own thoughts and emotions. Emotions is something that in case, even if we sit for a few minutes, we know that whether I'm feeling low or I'm feeling good. And sometimes the best way to check that out is with my previous emotions. Think of the best time that you had in life, whether it was with a person or it was in a situation or it was after an achievement, whatever it was. And once you are able to have that as the basic tenet of your emotion, and then check with the emotion right now. And if there is any difference, especially if it is less, you know that there is something that's bothering you. And then you start changing that. This technique is called check and change, which means on a constant basis. And after some time, it becomes second nature. You don't have to, after some time, even think about it. It's something that happens automatically. If you're feeling low, then you start saying, okay, what is happening around me? Can I change that? And if I can't change that, can I put it aside for some time? And if there is something which is not of the present, can I just leave it for the future? Or if it is something of the past, can I learn to let go of it? And that becomes the second technique, which is putting a full stop. Now, I just want you to do a small exercise when you get back. If you are on a Word file, you start removing all the full stops. And then you start removing all the commas. And then you start removing all the spaces. So the main characters are there. And yet it won't make any sense. So even in a language, only when you have the pauses, and then when you have a full stop, it means one sentence is over and you are starting afresh. Does it make sense? Similarly, in our own thoughts, unless you are able to finish one thought or you are able to finish one thing in life, you can't move on. And a lot of times our past thoughts, our past memories, our past feelings of regret, or not being able to forgive someone or not being able to forgive ourselves just keeps coming in our day-to-day function. So if we can learn to say, and which is the truth, this is not something that I'm asking you to do, which is something which is make-believe. The fact is that the second that has passed just now, I can't retrieve that sentence. I can't retrieve that emotion. I have to let go of that. I have to put a full stop, then only I move forward. I can learn from it, but I cannot just hold on to it. So as much as possible, if we can learn to put a full stop, let each and every thought, let each and every emotion be a fresh one. And once it's a fresh one, then we have so much energy and time that we have, that we would be able to achieve much, much more. The third thing is to be able to step back. When you sit in a plane and you look down, everything looks very small. And you can't understand how people are just, walking around or motoring, or, you are far removed from that. And if you were to able to hear their conversation or the fights that they are having, or the kind of issues that people may be having, you won't understand how it is possible to do that because you're far away. So many times in many of the situations, we don't have to be a part of it. We can learn to step back. In Hindi, it's called Sakshi, Drishta, which means that you are there, but you're not a part of it. And once you're able to do that, then many of the emotions that we get sucked in, because of which our resilience goes down, our ability to hold on to our own positive emotions goes down, that would be reduced. So if you can learn to do that, and this is a practice you can do on an everyday basis, one of the things that is taught in Raj Yoga is what is called as traffic control. Traffic control is the process where every hour you're able to pause, sometimes for 30 seconds, sometimes for a minute, and about 5 times in a day for a slightly longer period of about 3 minutes, where you step back from whatever you're doing. You put a pause to whatever you're doing, even in a physical way, and of course mentally, and to your emotions. And you try and reconnect with yourself. And if possible, then reconnecting with the source of God. So if you are able to do that, then you are able to let go of many situations which come on a day-to-day basis as a challenge to us. So this is the third of stepping back. Fourth is becoming mindful. You know, it's very strange that so quickly we become used to whatever is happening around us. And after some time, it all becomes automatic. When we start, for example, if you are eating with one hand, if you are right-handers, then we do everything with right hand. And we say, oh, it's impossible to do anything with the left hand. But if you have a fracture in the right hand, second day onwards, you start eating well with the left hand. You will start writing with the left hand. You start doing other things with the left hand. But that happens when you become mindful of everything that you're doing. You become mindful of the sounds, of the sights, of the smells, and of your own emotions at all points of time. And that's something which is very easy to do. Again, you may have to take out 5 minutes to begin with. Start becoming aware of the sounds around you. For example, the human mind again has huge capabilities. You can stand at a very busy intersection where there's a lot of traffic, and you can become used to that sound. After some time, that doesn't bother you. And you go into the hills, and over there is no sound. Initially, it is very eerie. Many people can't handle it. But after some time, you start hearing a bird which is chirping about half a kilometer away. In the last 3 months, for a large number of people, this experience of having the birds chirping right next to you. My personal feeling is that a lot of it is, of course, because of less traffic and less pollution. Birds are also coming back, but it's also because we are calming down internally after accepting certain things. You can't go out today, you can't go out. If you're not doing anything else, so you're sitting at one place, and now you suddenly start becoming more aware of the birds around. So you're becoming mindful of all that is happening around. And once you can start doing it on a very regular basis, in a very, very intentional way, then you start becoming aware of each and everything around you, including your own emotions, including the triggers for your emotions, including whatever has been bothering you or whatever you feel you will be disturbed about in future. Every day we think about 270 to 300 pages of a book. Every minute we have about 25 to 30 thoughts if we are relaxed. If we are very tense, it could be 60 to 100. If we are extremely relaxed, it could be 5 to 10. So in a day, it turns out to be about 250 to 300 pages of a book every day. And if you were to record it, I don't think we would want to read our own book. Because 90 to 95% of it is, I'm sorry using the word garbage. It's all recycled material. What happened and why it happened and why did I say this or why did somebody say that to me, etc., etc. Or what will happen in future and how can I do this and whether I will be able to do it. And next day you realize, do an experiment with yourself tomorrow. Try and see what you would eat a week from now. Try and see what you would wear a week from now. And then just write it and put it away and see what happens after a week. Forget about it and then see after a week whether you ate that or you wore that. And a large number of times you will find that it was something else. So something which is completely in your control, if you are not able to even control that, if you are looking at situations in life which may be changing, evolving, and there are many other factors, many other people who are going to be contributing to that. Thinking too far ahead is something which is a lot of waste of energy. So if we can learn to become mindful of things now, being in the here of now, and if you are in the here and now all the time, you suddenly would have so much energy to do whatever you want. And that itself brings a sense of control and mastery, over one's own thoughts and emotions. And that gives you a direction to be able to move forward. Fifth is what we call as the bend and the end. You know, they say that as you grow older, you become more experienced. I think experience is learning that many things will happen in life, and yet everything is not the end of life. So things which seem critical, things which seem as sometimes even completely tragic, next day changes. So, you know, it's like going in the hills. When you're going up the hills, you will suddenly find that there's a big hill that comes in front. And then the road winds and there is a bend. And as soon as you take the bend, you have a beautiful valley in front of you. So similarly in life, I understand that, you know, when you are younger, it's more difficult. And that's why I'm trying to share some of the experiences. Because if you imbibe it early, you have that edge. Many of us didn't have that edge because, frankly, it was not available. But today, because of technology, although it has had its own downsides, too much of it, but yes, it also gives you a window to the entire human existence and human experience, which one can learn from. So nothing in life is final. Till the last day, things change. You know, it's like a game of chess. You play two and then something else comes and, you know, the whole thing changes. So the ability to be aware of what it is that life is offering you and then be able to change it is what is most important. So don't see anything as the end. And that's why, especially for those who feel that, you know, life is not dealt them a very good hand, but if you play that hand well, a lot can be achieved. So once we do that, on a day-to-day basis, what can be done? I think very simple things. Let me try and break that down for you. First, have some time for yourself. Now, initially, it may be difficult. Now, that time could be self-reflection. That time could be meditation. Meditation is something which has taken on a very esoteric meaning, but meditation basically means going within, reflecting your purpose, knowing what is bothering you, correcting that, connecting with your highest source of yourself as a human being, and then connecting with the higher source that is God, and being able to then walk that path. And then being with other people who are walking a similar path. You know, you get into a good university because somewhere you feel that the teachers would be good, the course would be good, and you also feel that there would be other people who have similar interests in life. So if you join a good meditative practice, there are others who are on the same path of improving oneself. And if one is able to do that, then that becomes a very, very big plus. And today, where we are talking a lot about being connected, whether through technology or otherwise, I think the same thing can happen with meditation, because that's something which you can keep coming back to, especially when you are in difficult times. So once you do that, then you would be able to keep following it forever in your life. Second is right sleep, right eating, and checking what is eating you. You know, there is a lot of talk about good protein, good carbohydrates, vitamins, etc. But what is going inside my mind in terms of the information and what is eating me is equally important. And I think a lot of wasteful information, which is time pass, is something that we have to be very, very careful about, because, you know, we all have a certain amount of time in life. How we utilize that and how much of that information we utilize for ourselves becomes the most important thing. So being very, very cognizant of that. And sleep, I want to flag, because, you know, a large number of people this age, and actually at this point of time, any age, especially because a lot of people are at home. So sleep cycle has gone for a toss. But we know that it's not only important in terms of when you sleep or how many hours you sleep, but how you sleep. There are innumerable studies, and this is a known fact, that people who don't sleep on time with their circadian rhythms. Our body has a circadian rhythm, and the sun and the moon actually decide that time for us. And that's why when you change the time zone, that's why you have to get into the local time zone. If you don't, then you are out of sync. And that's why sleeping early, waking up early goes with that circadian rhythm, which gives you the best physical and mental immunity and builds up your resilience. And then packing up everything that you can at the time of sleeping. All the thoughts, all the things, all the actionable points, that's over. You can only take them up tomorrow morning. You can't wake up in the night in sleep and try and dial somebody. So being cognizant of the fact that, okay, today is over. Today I have done whatever best I could. And now I need to move forward, charge my battery of the phone in the brain. And I put it on, at the moment, on silent mode. And I sleep off and wake up fresh in the morning and take it up again. And third thing is exercise, the right exercise, whether it is yoga or it is other ways, which again builds up your physical resistance and immunity. And it also builds up your emotional resilience. Because if you have, unhealthy body, you won't be able to have the best of resilience. So having that, and fourth, but probably the most important, is the addictions. Whether it is addiction to people, or it is addiction to technology, or it is addiction to substances, whether tobacco, alcohol, or other drugs of abuse, they won't allow you to be able to think clearly. And if you're not able to think clearly, you obviously cannot have a plan of action for your own positive emotions. So once you're able to do that on a day-to-day basis, I think life can be set for two reasons. That means you are ahead of others in terms of being able to deal with yourself as you are now. Second is that you are able to then build an immunity and an emotional resilience and feel good factor, because of which in future, whenever you are having a similar situation, you would be able to deal with it at that point of time. And if we are able to do that and make it as a second habit and then a part of your personality, then you're all set to take on whatever challenges that the life offers you. And lastly, everything that's happening, we know that this too shall pass. Nothing is permanent. Whether it's a cloud, or it is a day, or it is an external situation. Because at the end of the day, tough people last, tough situations don't. Thank you very much for a very, very patient hearing. I enjoyed being here. I'm open to any questions or any discussion.
Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful and insightful session. We indeed have a few questions. The first question that we have with us is, although we can try to concentrate on our work, but still 100% is not possible. How can we manage it?
Okay. If you remember, in schools, we used to have a period for about 45 minutes. And even now for most of the university, that's what the basic norm is. Unfortunately, now with the webinars, it just goes on endlessly. Now that's the time that most of the people, on an average, are able to hold their concentration. Incidentally, for anyone who feels that they are not able to hold their concentration for too long, the process of being able to focus and then memory goes step by step. You first have to have attention, which means that you need to start being, you want to focus on that. That's something that gives you pleasure. And that's why if it is something you can't concentrate for too long. So once you have the attention and you're able to do that for a prolonged period of time, which means there are no distractions. Distractions could be external, it could be sounds, it could be uncomfortable chair, it could be temperature, it could be anything. Or you have, a phone call which is coming, which is distracting you, whatever. Once that happens, then you're not able to concentrate for long. If you're not able to concentrate for long, then you miss out what has happened. And especially if it is a two-way process. If you're only reading, then in reading, maybe you can pick up from where you left. But let's say there's a seminar going on, then a few minutes have gone, you have not been able to follow that, it becomes difficult. And then you're just trying to catch up. So that's why before you start something which is of importance, if you can, all the distractions can be kept aside, and that's very, very important to today's context where people are multitasking. I see people who are watching a serial or a Netflix, and they're also eating and they're also looking at the phone on the side, or they are, anonymously nowadays. Many of the people are on a webinar which is going on, and you put yourself, you put your video away, and then you think that you can do many other tasks on the side. The mind doesn't work like that. Multitasking, if it is in different areas, maybe to some extent for a short period of time, but you can't have two competing sounds at that point of time. So you have to put everything else on mute. Even now, if I'm speaking and you're also speaking, we won't be able to hear anything. So distractions should not be there. And then if you're not able to do it for long, then you start with short periods. If you have been able to do it for 5 minutes, extend it for a little longer. And once you're able to do that, pat yourself on the back and then go on for the next thing. And if you're not able to do that at all, then it's important to try and see what is it that has been bothering you. Maybe it is some old thoughts. Maybe you're not emotionally feeling well. Maybe there is something that you feel disturbed about, something that somebody has said. So get it out of the way, and then you would be able to do that.
Thank you, sir, for that. The second question that we have with us is it actually possible to control our emotions? And if yes, then how strictly should we try to control our emotions?
Okay, the trick is not to try and control. The trick is to try and manage. The trick is to try and give it a direction. If you are controlling, it's all happening within you. A part of you is trying to control another part of you. It doesn't work. I remember a small story. This person said, I have two dogs inside my head, a black one and a white one. And this was something very funny. The other person said, oh, so what are they doing? He said, they are fighting with each other. So he said, okay, which one is going to win? So he said, the white one. And the other person found it extremely odd that, he's saying there are two dogs, they're fighting, and he can even predict which one will win. So he said, but how do you know? She said, because I keep feeding the white dog. So similarly, if you have the emotions which are welling up, you try and control it, it doesn't work. But you can keep feeding it by giving it a direction. So you choose what direction you want to give it. Of course, if the emotions are extremely strong, and sometimes when, a lot of times in the certain age group, you may have breakups, or you may have failures, or you may have problems with people at home or some other person outside. There are many emotions that well up at that point of time. It also has to do with a certain age and hormones. But to realize that at that point of time, not to react, but to wait and respond. If you are able to do that, then it will be easier for your emotions to find a way out. And do it every time that you are faced with that emotion. And there is another aspect which is called as rehearsing. If it is happening too often, then you rehearse how well you are going to be able to do that. In your own mind, try and rehearse how I'm going to positively get over this particular emotion. What I am going to say, which will not be hurtful to the other person, and yet I will not feel completely devastated by that emotion. So if you can plan that, yes, you can overcome these emotions. And the earlier you do, the better it is. And in case you're not able to, it's also important to see a counselor. It's also important to see a mental health expert, to talk to somebody that you trust, to talk to somebody in the family, to talk to somebody in the institution, because if it accumulates and goes on for too long, then it can cause much more disaster in your life. So it's important to also become cognizant of that.
Thank you, sir, for the answer. The next question that we have with us is, when do we know that we should actually go ahead and take professional help for mental health? And what is the role of genetics in mental health, and how much is it changeable? Can we change the genetics?
Can I know who's asked this question? It's a wonderful question. Okay. So whoever has asked this question has obviously been thinking a lot about it. And that's great. I think that's commendable. Yes, we can change our emotions. We can change our genetics. There is something called epigenetics at this point of time, which means beyond genetics, which means that you're born with certain genetics, but they are not fixed. There are triggers which make you express or not express that particular gene. So, for example, any of the illnesses are not completely going from one generation to another. What is going from one generation to another is propensities, the possibilities, the chances, and then the choices that we make start expressing it or not expressing it. So, and another thing that has been seen is because, at this point of time, there is no particular genetic pattern for any of the disorders which can be said to be set. It's also an interaction of genes. It's not that there is one gene which expresses one particular illness. So if you are able to keep changing your choices, the easiest example is diabetes. You may have a history of diabetes, but if right from beginning you're exercising, you're eating the right kind of food, you may not have diabetes. But you don't have a family history of diabetes, and you are doing all the things which are not helping in your insulin response, you will get diabetes. Same way with human emotions. When should we seek professional help? When you feel that it is interfering with your day-to-day function, when the emotion that you are having is not only once in a while, when it has gone on for a long period of time, more than 2 weeks to begin with, when it has started interfering with everything else, your day-to-day functioning, your relationships, your ability to study, your sleep, that is the time to see professional help. 2 reasons. One is the professional is a caring outsider. So the person will not see the situation from your perspective, will see it from a higher perspective, and they can give you guidance. Second, sometimes medication may be required to temporarily at least help you through with that crisis. And a large number of times, as I had said in the beginning itself, that many of the illnesses, mental illnesses, which subsequently become more serious, start in this particular age group. And that's why it's important that you see professional help. And the worst will be that the person will say, oh, it's nothing big. It's something you can help like this and can give you guidance. So like if you are, taking seminars on everything else, you are seeing somebody for your professional career, why not something which is the most important part of your life forever, which is what makes you what you are, a unique person. So why not even for your emotions?
Thank you, sir, for that response. The next question that we have is that how to handle multiple demands from ourselves and also focus on our well-being. So the one who asked also finds it difficult to trade off without guilt. How to manage it?
Okay, so the answer is in the question itself. Because these are not demands from others, these are demands from oneself. So the best trick is to prioritize and prioritize with the principle, what is it that is doable? What is it that is long-term value to you? What is it that would add to what your purpose in life is? And what is it that will give you and others happiness around you? If you can keep answering that question, then you would be able to prioritize. You would be able to take up the most important first. And if you are giving in to the least important, then of course there might be guilt. Guilt for the fact that you know what is more important and you have not been able to address that. So even if you're doing that, then slowly one can learn to let go of that which is not important and keep seizing that which is very, very important. And then slowly over a period, a lot of times we give in to things which we are not very comfortable with because we feel, oh, it's not important as far as my overall well-being is concerned. Or you feel, okay, it's only a few minutes, or it is something that, when I'm nothing else to do, I'll do it. But if you start valuing each and every minute of your life, if you start valuing each and every thought that you have, because it all is accumulating and contributing to you as a person forever in your life, then you would be able to start giving it much more importance. And then the mind will be able to say, yeah, this is important, let's do that. And then you will feel good about it. And that will be the cycle of motivation and empowerment, which will keep on going forever.
Thank you, sir, for your response. Even though we have a lot of questions pouring in, due to the dearth of time, we'll be taking this one last question. So the question is that how to handle the negative effects of people's comments around us, especially when we are already struggling to deal with our emotional imbalance.
How many here know Spanish? No, nobody? Okay, all right. So if I say something terrible to you in Spanish, I don't think there would be much response. So if somebody has said, that itself has no response unless I take it personally. So it is my interpretation of what has been said. Let me say something terrible. Let's say somebody called me Gada. Well, if I don't consider myself to be one, it won't bother me. And yet, if I thought that, yes, I have certain qualities of being one, then it may start bothering me. A lot of times when outsiders say something, it bothers us because we value their inputs about ourselves. We need to value inputs, but only of people that we trust, number one. Number two, our own self-esteem, if it is high, and the part of the question was that, if you are battling our own emotions. Yes, if you are battling our own emotions, then we are dependent on outsiders to be able to define who I am. And yet, if I'm comfortable under my skin, then I'm able to deal with that situation and say it doesn't bother me because that's not what I am. And once that happens, then slowly over a period of time, people also start understanding that they can't really bother you much. And their ability to disturb you also starts going down. Or at least your ability to deal with the situation keeps going up. And that's how you start building your own emotion. It's like building a small cocoon around you. What we are hearing at the moment of putting on a face shield or a mask, it's the same. So if there is some viruses coming from different directions, you have a mask. So similarly, if you have a mask around your mind, you won't be that bothered about what somebody else has said. But yes, for that you have to deal with your own emotions first. You have to become more comfortable under your skin. You have to become more accepting of yourself. You have to start having positive emotions around you. And also, if you start giving, and especially if it is somebody who knows you very well, you interact with that person every day. If you start giving to that person a lot of times, then those negative kind of comments also start reducing because you have a better relationship with that person.
Thank you, sir, for the response. I hope all the participants have got the required answers to their questions. There were many more questions, but I apologize that we could not take them, all of them. So now I invite Sister Kamala for a quick announcement before I deliver the vote of thanks.
Yes. As we have been having free meditation online courses after every session of the entire Mind Over Matter series, and it has been so good to see many people have been registering to learn the meditation, Raj Yoga meditation online. Likewise, tomorrow onwards, in the coming week, we will be having a 3-day meditation course, 1 hour each day, and it's going to be alternative days, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And the timings are 5 to 6 p.m. in the evening. So anyone who wants to register for it, or anyone who wants to know about any of our courses or the Thought Lab establishment, can contact brahmakumaris.dwarka@gmail.com. That's brahmakumaris.dwarka@gmail.com. So this is the contact information that I would like to share. The meditation course starts from tomorrow evening, 5 to 6 p.m. Thank you so much. Om Shanti.
Can I add something here?
Yes.
Having practiced Rajaga meditation now for about 28 years, and before that, I started the journey of wanting to look within for various reasons. So started looking at various forms of meditation. What I found is that something that brings about a change in you as a person, something that gives you purpose, or it gives you an end point of making a change within yourself, and something that connects with other people who are going through a similar process, can be a very enriching experience. And if you are able to learn to handle your own self, your own emotions, and if you're able to learn the ways of being stable in unstable times, which Rajaga meditation does, then that could be a wonderful tool which is there for you whenever and wherever you are. And through you, it can become an instrument which can help others around you. Because at this point of time, what we are saying is that mental health professionals are not going to be able to deal with the emotional crisis going on in the society at this point of time. We are required to deal with problems as and when they arise. But before that, each one has to be responsible for themselves and then to reach out to others to be able to help. And I think meditation that way is a wonderful tool which one can learn and imbibe and then practice for life.
Thank you so much, sir. So I, Gaurav Dalan, on behalf of NSS TGS IPU and all the participants, extend a hearty vote of thanks to Dr. Avdesh Sharma for giving us time for another great session in Mind Over Matter 2. Thank you, Dr. Sharma, for the life-changing session on building emotional resilience. I'm sure we all will cherish the learning of this session in the times to come. I would express my gratitude and thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Mahesh Verma, for his encouragement and in all our endeavors. I would also like to thank Sri Ravi Dadij, Registrar GGS IPU, for all his support. Heartfelt thank to Professor B.V.R. Reddy, Program Coordinator, NSS GGS IPU, for being a pillar of constant encouragement, support, and motivation in this endeavor. I would also like to thank Professor Samrat Mukhopadhyay, Coordinator, NSS IIT Delhi, for giving us opportunity to collaborate with NSS IIT Delhi. I would also like to extend my deep gratitude to Sister P.K. Kamala from Raja Yoga Education and Research Foundation for her invaluable contribution to this collaboration, both in terms of encouragement and in getting such internationally and nationally acclaimed speakers for these sessions. Today, we have come to the end of our Mind Over Matter Season 2. I would also like to thank all our participants for making both the seasons, Season 1 and Season 2 of Mind Over Matter series, immensely successful. Your encouraging comments and motivational words, they kept us going all the time. It has been a wonderful journey with you guys, and I hope that we all will come together again in the times to come. Maybe another session or maybe another season. For those of you who could not join us for these wonderful sessions of Mind Over Matter Season 1 and Season 2, both of them, you have an opportunity to watch all the videos on our YouTube channel. They still will be there. The results of the writing competition, communicating through my unseen site, that was a part of Being There I Share series and was announced in the last week. So the results of that will be announced on the social media pages of the series. I request all the participants to please stay tuned for that, for the results on the social media pages only. So finally, I request all the participants to fill up the feedback questionnaire forms for getting the e-certificate for this session. You can find the link to the form in the comments below and in the live chat box of this video on YouTube. To attend the 3-day online Raja Yoga meditation course being offered by RERF, especially for our participants, you may fill the 3-day course form link, which is also available in the comments below. Thank you all. Thank you so much.